Hey beautiful people, what is up and welcome back to my channel. I'm Jamila and I love all things beauty. I love all things... What do I love? Oh, wait, no, I forget. Jesus. Y'all, I haven't had coffee yet, so... My brain is not functioning. Okay, let's try this again. Hey beautiful people, what is up and welcome back to my channel. I'm Jamila and I love all things beauty. I love all things makeup, I love all things skincare, and I especially love sharing my tips and tricks for how to find high-end and luxury beauty products at bargain prices. If that sounds like something you're interested in, I would absolutely love if you'd consider subscribing and joining the fam. There we go, we got it. Okay, so today I'm gonna be doing a bit of a chatty get ready with me. I honestly wasn't really sure what today was gonna look like because I have a bunch of videos to film, about 4. So we're gonna go with Jesus on this one. And I thought the first one I would do just sort of my, not really a review, but honestly like just slapping it on my eyes. The Mel Thompson bundle from Sydney Grace. This was Mel's sort of retro glam inspired look. So I went ahead and purchased the bundle. So I really want to put this on my eyes because it's so dang on pretty. Ooh, she cute. Anyways, so I'm going to slap that on my eye. It's going to be a really simple look. And I figured that while I was doing that, I wanted to have this conversation. I don't really know where the conversation is going to go. It might be a couple of different topics rolled into one, so the title will probably tell you where we're going with this. But let me stop rambling. I'm going to bring y'all in a little bit closer, and we're just going to dive into me doing a quick look with this bundle, and then just chit-chatting. Chit-chat. Oh, Jesus, I can't speak today, Lord. The coffee had hit my brain yet. Y'all, I'm tired, but we're gonna film today. Ooh la la. I feel like this is just gonna go left so quickly, but I'm gonna start by going into this green shade as my transition shade. Okay, and the topic that I thought I would, talk about for this chatty get ready with me was actually inspired in some ways by the release of this bundle from, well, not this bundle, but it was inspired a little bit by the release of the Retro Glam palette from Natasha Denona. And it's this concept that makeup is actually not one size fits all. And I'm not, talking about Patrick Starr's brand or anything like that. That's not where I'm going with this. And I'm also not saying that makeup is not one size fits all in the, perspective of makeup is for women only, or, a specific gender or age or sex or anything like that, right? That's not where I'm coming from with this. Where I'm coming from, and I know I'm not the most articulate right now, but what I'm basically trying to say is that everything isn't for everybody, right? And I say this was inspired by the Natasha Denona release because when the palette first came out, my gut reaction was like, ooh, child, the ash. And if you've seen the palette, which I assume most of you have, it is a very light palette. It looks a lot like this Sydney Grace and Mel bundle, but just lighter. It has a lot more light shades. I think it has maybe 2 deep shades, and they are the cream to powder matte formula that Natasha has, which, as you all know, or maybe you don't know, but the cream to powder formula that Natasha has is very much one of those that looks really deep in the pan, but once you apply it to the eyes, it definitely does not have the same level of depth or intensity. So because of that, when I saw the palette, I was like, yeah, that ain't gonna work for me. Or a lot of people of the deeper persuasion. But the thing about it is that it could work if you want it to work, right? So I have seen people deeper than me use the palette. I've seen them love it. And that is kind of like the aspect of makeup is for everybody that I think a lot of us think about, in that you could wear whatever you want. You could wear pastels, you could wear deep grungy looks, you can wear lighter shades, deeper shades. Anybody could wear anything if that is your persuasion and if that is what makes you happy. But just because you could do something doesn't mean you should do something. You know what I mean? And for me, I could, in theory, buy that palette and make it work on my skin tone, but I wouldn't do that, and that's why I chose not to buy a palette, because one, it was just not gonna work. It was gonna be too much work for me to make it work, and it wasn't something that I felt would make me happy. So that is like where I'm coming from with, like, makeup isn't one size fits all. Everything isn't gonna work for everybody. Everything isn't gonna please everybody. And the reality is that it is quite impossible for a brand to create a product that is going to work for everybody and make everybody happy. Because, you know, taking the skin tone thing aside and whether or not it has enough depth, there are other factors that, you know, might just not be for certain people. Like, you know, there are issues when it comes to, you know, I might have oily lids and someone may not have oily lids. So, you know, they may have issues with shadows creasing on them. Very recently, Steven pointed out that, you know, some of Natasha's shadows and her like matte crayons, they have carmine in them. And for some people, vegan products are very important because they have sensitivities. So there are certain things where it's like, you know, it's very, very much impossible for a brand to create a product that works for everybody. And when I saw the palette, honestly, like I had the gut reaction, but then it honestly was like a second. And then my mind was like, well, it ain't for me. I saved myself $69. Which is great because your girl needs to save. But I didn't take it to heart too, because right before Natasha had released the Retro Glam, she had released the My Dream palette, which honestly is an amazing palette, one that I absolutely love, and one that I have said, and I've heard other darker creators and just people in general say that, you know, that is one of the palettes that Natasha's created that works for my skin tone. I can use every single shade, you know, and they're just so happy with the fact that that palette works for them. And you know, there are going to be some palettes from a brand that would work for you and some palettes that don't work for you. And that's what I found with, you know, the Retro Glam palette that she released. I'm like, okay, this one didn't work for me, but the one that she came out with before did. So, you know, keep it pushing. And I kind of felt the same way when she had her pastel release, where it was very much like a light palette. And I've seen people of deeper complexions use it and it looks beautiful on them and they figured out how to maneuver it. I just don't have that kind of skill. So for me, it wasn't one that was gonna work. But I was just like, okay, that's just not for my, you know, that's just not gonna be one that's gonna work in my collection. But I'm happy for those who are able to use it and for who it works. And you know, as I was thinking about this topic and, you know, how I would have this chatty get ready with me, you know, like a lot of things just go through my head as they typically do. So one of the things that I started thinking about more and more was, you know, is there ever a case where it is not okay for a brand to have products that just don't work for everybody, right? Because like, yeah, there are going to be certain things that don't work for people just based on basic preference. But is there a time when, you know, the outrage is warranted? Is there a time when we can be upset and bothered by the fact that a brand isn't creating products that's going to work for multiple people? And the more I thought about it, the more I like sat with it, I was like, honestly, I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, and I know that's not a great response. Honestly, doing this video was very hard for me, like even coming to think about doing it, because while I've had this idea in my head for a while, I was just like, I don't know how to talk about this because I feel like I personally don't have a resolution in my thoughts and in my feelings about it. So it's very, very conflicting. Because here's the thing, right? Brands are allowed to have a target demographic. And who am I to tell a brand that they shouldn't choose a specific target demographic? So if they wake up and decide, listen, we want our customer base to be all rich white people, okay, fine. Like, who am I to be like, no, you need to be more inclusive, blah, blah, blah. If that is who they want to sell their products to, they do in some ways have every right to choose that group of people that they want to sell their products to. Is it the best or the smartest financial decision? As someone who has no background in finances, I'm gonna say no. Because you are excluding an entire group of people, an entire customer base, you know, and that may not be the best financial decision, but if that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. And in some ways, you know, exclusivity exists in so many different factors, right? There are brands that operate in the luxury space, and the whole concept of luxury is exclusion. Luxury is not created to allow a lot of people to be able to participate in that, you know, in that world, right? Like the people at Hermes and Gucci they are not creating products for the masses. They are not creating products for everybody to be able to purchase. So exclusion is in a lot of ways just kind of a part of everything, and a part of beauty itself. You know, certain brands choose to price their products in a way that excludes a lot of people. Like, I can fully agree and admit that Pat McGrath's prices are very, very exclusionary. Not everybody can or is willing to save up the amount of money that it costs to purchase a Pat McGrath mothership, because that is expensive. Granted, Patricia does have a ton of sales, which, you know, does make it more attainable, where you could get her products at pretty darn cheap prices. But if Patricia didn't have any sales, there would be people who just could not afford to, or, you know, because they just don't want to, would not purchase Pat McGrath's shadow. You know, same with like Lisa Eldridge, Natasha Denona. Natasha has palettes that cost over $200. Not everybody wants to spend their money on that, and not everybody can afford to, because at the end of the day, $200 could be 2 weeks worth of groceries. $200 could be a third of your rent, half of your rent, whatever. So, you know, people, luxury is one of those things that is quite exclusionary. So if brands are allowed to exclude in that way, are they allowed to exclude in other ways? You know, by creating products only for a specific demographic. Now, I think that is where my rub comes in, because I am like, well, I mean, I guess if they wanted to say that they don't want people of darker skin tones buying their products, they could, like, and my personal opinion is that if you don't want me buying your products, fine. Like, just let me know. Like, I'm not gonna be mad if I'm not your customer base. It's a-okay, because I think that I've gotten to the point where I feel like I'm tired of having to ask and beg and like shame brands into wanting to create products for like deeper complexions or for a certain demographic, and I'm just over it, because at this point it's very clear that exclusion is a choice. It's not an accident. They're not doing it by mistake. They didn't create 6 shades with 0 deeper shades on accident. It is an active choice. And if you are actively choosing to do that, I'm going to read it and be like, cool, not for me. All right, thanks for letting me know. I'll exit stage left. No harm, no foul. And I think the other reason too why I'm not really bothered by brands not creating products for me or for the, and that's where a lot of my thoughts are coming from, is like the deeper skin tone issue. But part of the reason why I'm not bothered by it is because the makeup market is so oversaturated. Like, there is nothing that I cannot get at this point. And there are so many different brands that are catering to me that I don't need to sit here and beg Chantecaille to come up with a deeper bronzer, because I could go get me a deeper bronzer from literally dozens of other places. And even if I wanted to, like, I could completely exclude some of these big mainstream white-owned brands and focus on black-owned brands, because we have a lot of black-owned brands now in every category. If you want luxury, Patricia is there for you. If you want mid-tier, you have LYS Beauty. If you want drugstore, Oma Beauty has a drugstore line. I think it's Oma Beauty by Sharon C. So, like, there are so many brands that are available. Mented Cosmetics, like, that will cater to me, that I don't need to sit here and be worried about Chantecaille or be worried about Tarte or be worried about Hourglass and what they're doing. So that's just how I feel. Okay, let's go into, I'm gonna do 2 shimmers as I usually do. I think I'm gonna go do, no, I'll do this one and the pink. I really want to put pink on my eyes for some reason, so let's do that. Now, I think where the rub for me comes with this issue is when brands try to pretend that they're not for a certain demographic, you know, like, or they aren't being exclusionary, or they're being inclusive. For example, when Hourglass created their little bronzer product and they had that little scandal a few years ago? Yeah, a couple years ago. The issue wasn't that they weren't inclusive, or it was. That was the one issue. That was like the main issue. My issue wasn't that they weren't inclusive. My issue was that y'all just straight up lied. Like, the lies, the deception. That is what bothered me. My lips are so dry. Let me add a little moisture. Honestly, Sydney Ray shadows are just like magic, and they're so fun to play with. Oh. Anyways, so my issue was that they straight up like lied. Like, what they did was so irritating in the fact that they took a product that they knew that wasn't going to work for deeper complexions. They purposefully used a deeper model and then added a bunch of filters to make the product look deeper than it actually was, and then tried to convince us that it would work for deeper complexions. Like, really? like, and the thing about it was that, you know, the product had the same name. All of the products, you know, they keep the pretty same name. So people were very quickly able to realize that this isn't a new product that is suddenly going to work for deeper complexions. This is the same product that already exists, that you all have repackaged and added a darkening filter to make it look like it's going to work for a deeper complexion. And you used a deeper skinned model, and the girl was deeper than me, yeah? So if I see somebody darker than me using a product, I automatically am going to assume, okay, if it works for her, it works for me. But then when people started showing the product in real lighting, and you know, you actually realize that it wasn't even a new product, it was literally a powder that existed already that they repackaged, that created like a whole second wave of outrage. And that is what pissed me off the most. If you just don't want me to use your product, or you don't want to create a product for me, just tell me that now, and I'll go about my business, easy peasy. But don't try to force me into, or not even force, but bamboozle me into purchasing a product that you know isn't going to work for me. That is what irritated me. That is what I was like, nah. Because if it just was like, listen, we just don't want to create darker shades, all right, cool, fine. You know, you have every right to not create darker shades. Thank you for letting me know. But the hourglass powders aren't cheap. Had I fallen victim to believing that that was the actual coloring and went out and spent my good hard-earned money on it, only to realize that it's gonna be ashy on me, I would have been mad as hell. And thankfully, you know, so many people on the interwebs are just so astute and pay so much attention that they were able to really see that this is not a new shade. This is not a new color. This color already exists, and this color is not going to work for deeper complexions. And all of that trickery and foolery that's happening on camera is there to bamboozle y'all into purchasing something that isn't gonna work for you. Okay, I am liking where this is going. Let me clean up my eyes a little bit, and then I'm gonna come back, give y'all some final thoughts, and wrap up this video. Okay, I'm back, and this is the final face. I know this was more like a chatty eyeshadow tutorial than an actual get ready with me, but listen, y'all know what it is. Okay, so I'm gonna bring you guys in a little bit closer so you can see the final eye look. And before we go into sort of my final thoughts on this, you know, makeup isn't one size fits all conversation, I want to tell you guys what I'm wearing on the rest of my face. Okay, so for foundation, I'm wearing the Bite Beauty Change Makeup Foundation. This brand is gone. It's no more. So when they actually went out to business, they actually was selling this on Sephora for like $4. So I picked up this foundation to try. I actually really like it. It's a good foundation, and for $4, yeah. I also went in with this Charlotte Tilbury Beautiful Skin Concealer. This is in the shade Deep. I got this deluxe size as one of my like free Sephora gifts. I don't like it. I think it's a little thick and it does not blend out very easily. So it's definitely not a concealer that I would repurchase, or not even repurchase, actually purchase, because this was a free gift. Because it's just a little too thick and does not blend out very easily. I set my under eyes with the Pat McGrath Blurring Powder per usual. This is in the shade Deep. To set my face, I used the Too Faced Born This Way. This is actually considered a powder foundation, so I go in very lightly with this to set my entire face. This is in the shade Chai. For bronzer, I'm using the One Size Trio. This is, what is this? Dark. This is the Dark Trio. These are really pigmented. I think I could have gone up a trio into like medium because it's very, very rich. I had to use like the slightest bit and that will probably last me forever. For my blush, I'm using the Elephant palette from Hourglass. I kind of mixed the two pink shades. I figured the pink would go really well with the pink in the front part of this eye. So that's what I'm using on my cheeks. Very, very light. I also went in with the strobe light in this palette as the highlighter, the brow bone highlight, and the inner corner highlight. For my lips, I am using the Blend Bunny lip liner. This is Tease, or it's from the Tease bundle. And for my lipstick, which is, this actually is a gloss. So it's a gloss, not a lipstick, but a very, very pigmented gloss. I'm using the Sydney Grace lip in Tracy. And that's this face. Oh, wait, lastly, for mascara, I'm using this Clinique mascara. I don't like it. It came in like this free gift set. Well, the gift set wasn't free, but it came in this gift set. It was part of the products that was in there. And I just don't like this mascara. It doesn't really do much of anything, in my opinion. Okay, so my final thoughts on this whole issue. Like I said, I just believe at this point that makeup isn't one size fits all and that everything just isn't for everybody. And I think that that's okay. Does that mean that I'm going to stop calling out brands when they're not super inclusive or when it feels like an entire group of people are being, you know, excluded? Not necessarily. I think that there's just going to be times when I'm just like, whatever, like I'm just so over it because if you don't want to create a foundation for me, fine. I can find my foundation shade in so many other brands. So I don't want to sit here and work myself up and be angry and annoyed and irritated. So there are just going to be times when I'm just like over it and it's exhausting. And I think that that's okay because makeup for me, and I know for a lot of other people, is a form of escape. I work in policy and I spend a lot of my time dealing with like social justice issues and dealing with being very active in that way. And when I come here to do makeup and when I'm like in my makeup world, I don't want to be like continuously like fighting because this brand is exclusive, this brand, like it's exhausting. This is meant to be a form of release for me and I just don't have the capacity to constantly be like rah rah rah, which is fine, which is completely fine. And I think that y'all need to give, and me, everybody, we need to be, you know, give people grace to be like, just like, you don't have to be on the fight or on the offensive every time. Now, that doesn't mean just give people an out to like completely ignore issues because at the end of the day, allyship is really important. And we have seen that, you know, just the simple fact of like multiple people saying, you know, this isn't really the best, it's the most inclusive, like what happened with Hourglass. Like it was a lot of like white creators that was like, really, Hourglass? Come on. And that level of like support is important. And if it speaks to your heart and if it's something that really does bother you and you want to speak up, you 100% should. But I don't think we can expect people to constantly be on this level of like attack mode or whatever. I feel like I'm not describing it well, but you know what I mean. And that's just kind of how I feel going into it. Like there are going to be times when I see a brand release something and I'm like, now you know good and well you tried it. And then there's just going to be times that I'm not going to say anything. It doesn't mean that I don't care. It just means that I'm tired. Like, as a black woman, I am tired a lot of the times. And I just need to keep my mental health, my mental space safe. And like I've said, makeup is a form of release and enjoyment for me. And I cannot and will not jeopardize that and turn it into something ugly. That's just that. Additionally, like I said, the beauty industry, particularly the makeup market, is extremely oversaturated. You can find everything nowadays. Like you can really find everything. So if a brand is not catering to you, you can find it in another brand. Case in point, this Sydney Grace eyeshadow was Mel's vision. She used Sydney Grace shadows, and I specifically chose to purchase this bundle instead of Natasha's palette because I knew this bundle would work for me. And I don't feel any kind of way about it. I don't feel like, you know, one copied the other or anything. I just feel like this works, this doesn't work, so I'm gonna buy the one that works. And I think that that is entirely okay as well. So yeah, so that is it for this video. Those were my honestly random musings about makeup being one size fits all, about inclusion and exclusion in the makeup industry and how I feel about it. I am very curious to hear you guys' thoughts about this. I think that this could be a really good, you know, two-part video if like folks have really interesting comments. So please leave all of that down below. I would love to hear your thoughts on like how you feel about brands excluding certain people, having specific target groups that just exclude others. Like where does the line get drawn on it being like, okay, you're doing too much versus like, yeah, I mean, if you don't want to sell to me, that's fine. So let me know your thoughts on any comments below. Really excited to hear those. Be respectful, don't play. I am not the one and this is not the channel, okay? So y'all see, we see each other, okay? That's all I'm gonna say. Just be respectful down in the comments because this ain't the place. It sure as hell ain't the time either. So, like I said, comment, leave that down below. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. I'm very interested in doing more of these kind of chatty, kind of like just like my random thoughts videos. So subscribe if you haven't done so and you want to see more content from me. Leave a comment, like, share with a friend. You know the deal. As always, I love you guys so very much. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for watching. And I will catch you in the next time. Bye.